Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Well, apparently some reporter caught up to Floyd Mayweather and asked him about Ronda Rousey's loss. Let's just say this. I know there's stories going around that Mayweather had somebody send a tweet or an Instagram picture. I think it's supposed to be 50 Cent that kind of took a shot at Ronda Rousey. Here's what we know with certainty. Mayweather was actually diplomatic when asked about Rousey's loss. He said, look, in the world of fighting, wins and losses come with the territory. Right? I thought it was a very diplomatic response, since Mayweather has never lost as a professional. He must be remembering back to, amateur days and thinking about a loss. Because as a pro, of course, he's never lost. Understand how rare the air is that fighters like Mayweather, Marciano, Calzaghe are breathing, right? Anyone can go out and have a bad night. Anyone can walk into the wrong punch, or in MMA, the wrong kick, right? You could be the better fighter and lose a match, get knocked out, right? It happens. Not that I'm saying Ronda Rousey was better than Holly Holm, right? It's only a very few out there who can go through an entire career with such a big margin of error and with such consistency, because that's what it requires, right? And with a bit of luck, right? That first Castillo fight, the judges could have been less charitable. The Calzaghe-Hopkins fight, the judges could have been less charitable. But it's only a rare few who are able to be unbeaten. And understand, you can't really judge a fighter's unbeaten record until the end of their careers. Because there'll be many people who are unbeaten at different times in their career. Right? Early in their career, a lot of these young guys are unbeaten. The time to judge someone's unbeaten streak is at the end of their careers. Many people look like Mayweather, look like Calzaghe, look like Marciano. They aren't them. Let's talk about Jean Pascal signing with Freddie Roach. In my opinion, this is an inspired pairing. I mean, truly inspired. Right? First, Freddie Roach is the kind of trainer who can take, a world-class fighter who has been a world-class fighter for years. And Roach is that rare trainer who can take somebody else's work, right? The work of the trainers who came before him with regard to this fighter, and actually throw in wrinkles and have the fighter remember to go back to his strengths, to use the best parts of his game. That's what Roach has done with Miguel Cotto, who's very much like Jean Pascal. By the time Cotto got to Freddie Roach, he'd already been on the main stage fighting in big fights, championship fights, for years. Right? But Freddie Roach was the one to say, look, that fight you fought against Austin Trout, you fought the wrong style. What are you doing in the pocket with Austin Trout? What are you doing getting hit by a jab? You have legs. I know you have legs. I've seen films of when you were younger. You need to use your legs. You need to move around the ring. You need to be episodic. When you come into the pocket, you need to come into the pocket prepared with your A game, your left hook. You're not going to come in the pocket and try to play chess against some grandmaster. No, you need to enter the pocket throwing that left hook, putting the other guy on the defensive, having the other guy worried about you, having the other guy unable to get into any kind of rhythm because you're dictating the rhythm. Right? Roach is so good at it that think about some of the fighters he's had. Right? A fight that fascinates me to this day is Amir Khan against Zab Judah. I know Khan went on to leave Roach. I'll agree, if you're a fighter who wants to bang, who wants to stay in the pocket and trade punches and play chess, Freddie Roach is not for you. But I have to tell you, I've never seen Judah look worse. And this includes the Costa Tszyu fight. I've never seen Judah look worse than he looked against Amir Khan that night. Because Khan would leap in, throw combinations, and then would back out. I never got the feeling that Zab Judah got his car out of the driveway. Right? Think about Manny Pacquiao. You'll watch a Manny Pacquiao fight. And Pacquiao, in some fights, isn't even remotely accurate with his right hand. Right? He's throwing a jab. The jab's missing. Right? Pac doesn't really, in my opinion, have a right hook from distance. But yet Pacquiao will, bridge the height gap against a Chris Algieri. Won't be in front of Algieri to get hit with Algieri's jab, which we know he has, which we've seen him land on people like Ruslan Provodnikov, and then with suddenness from outside the pocket, just leap in with straight left hands and be the aggressor for most of the night. Right? Another Freddie Roach fighter is Victor Postal. Postal can play chess. If Postal wanted, he could stand in the pocket. He has a hand speed advantage. He's two-handed. He could dissect you. But Freddie Roach actually has Postal moving around the ring, doesn't he? Right? Postal's here. Postal's there. Postal's there. If you're Lucas Matisse, you're spending the night trying to catch up with Postal, walking into combinations. Now, Pascal has certain traits that I think are going to make him a great Freddie Roach fighter. Right? First off, Pascal has legs. That's crucial. He can move around the ring. Pascal's an athlete. Now, he's gotten away from using his legs. Even the Boutte fight, Pascal pretty much sets up shop. Right? You want the Pascal who beat Chad Dawson. Right? To me, the best Pascal is the Pascal in the first half of that Chad Dawson fight. Right? He's moving around the ring. He's throwing combinations. In fact, people forget how good he looked early, the first Bernard Hopkins fight. Right? Those of you who always write me and say, Pascal doesn't have a punch, need to ask yourself, given that Hopkins has one of the best beards in boxing, what knocked Hopkins down twice early in their first fight? Pascal has legs. He's a fast starter, right? Exhibit A, his opening against Hopkins the first time they fought. Exhibit B, his opening against Chad Dawson when Chad Dawson was one of the best in boxing. He's a fast starter. He has legs. He's coordinated. Right? You have to be coordinated to move around the ring, and then when you enter the pocket, to have that punch cocked. Right? He has a big punch, and he can lead with power shots. Right? I believe a Freddie Roach style is really a first or second dribble style. He's not a guy who's going to, have you in the pocket blocking shots and playing chess and thinking it through. That's why I didn't think Adrian Broner would be a great fit with Freddie Roach, because Broner's an in-the-pocket guy. I think Chavez Jr. used to be a good fit with Freddie, but I just feel that Chavez Jr. hasn't aged well, hasn't kept himself in peak condition. Right? Drops off considerably physically between fights, and just didn't have the stamina and coordination later in his career to really be a guy who was episodic, who could fight an ambush style in and out of the pocket. Right? So, count me among those who really feels that Pascal with Roach is going to rejuvenate his career. Now, the water is deep at 175 pounds. Right? Kovalev, Stevenson, Andre Ward now, Andres Fonfara, right? Artur Beterbiev, Jean Pascal, right? Possibly Lucien Boutte. We'll see how that Boutte-James DeGale fight turns out. You know, I personally believe that James DeGale, if he declares war on 175 pounds, might be able to run through that division, right? If you're a boxing fan, you need to keep a close eye on that division. Just understand, Freddie Roach is now a part of it, with a fighter who, in my opinion, is a great fit for him. Now let's talk about the Bryant Jennings Luis Ortiz fight. Let me say this. This is an interesting fight. It really is. You know, I consider Ortiz to be the better chess player. Right? In other words, if these guys lingered in the pocket, I think it's Ortiz who would do the breaking down of the other fighter. Right? But I consider Jennings to be the vastly superior athlete. Right? Jennings just strikes me as a great athlete. He's one of the best athletes in the heavyweight division. You get the feeling that he's learning the sport of boxing. He's one of those guys who you look at his style and you say, oh, this guy hasn't been boxing that long. Right? He looks like he's a latecomer to the sport. I was looking at that Klitschko fight, and I thought, great, you know, Jennings is moving around the ring. He's surviving. He's going the distance with Vladimir Klitschko, and he's not running. Right? That by itself is an accomplishment. But there were times where I was asking myself, what exactly is Bryant Jennings trying to set up? You know, what's the strategy behind all the effort here? And that was unclear to me. Well, let me say this. I'm picking Bryant Jennings to win this fight. Right? I'll hedge the play, if the odds allow, with Ortiz by KO. But understand, if Bryant Jennings comes in and fights, we'll call it a Freddie Roach fight. If he uses movement and athleticism, right? In fact, we'll call it a Roy Jones fight, a David Haye fight, right? If he uses movement, stays outside the pocket, limits the engagements, shoots a jab, and just pushes this fight into the later rounds, I believe Jennings, in fact, has a chance at a KO. Let me talk about my own personal bias, right? I believe when you let yourself get out of shape, right? When you let yourself go, you heard me talk about Chavez Jr. earlier in this video, right? When you don't train diligently for a period in your life and you let yourself go, when you get back to being rededicated, when you get back in the gym and you get yourself back in shape, while you might look like a guy who's in shape, you don't have the reflexes of someone who has kept themselves in shape from day one. Right? In my opinion, the best athletes are the guys who are always around their fight weight. Right? Those are the guys who bounce back. Right? I don't care what the sport is. You look at the guy who looks like his training camp is year-round. Right? You look at a guy like that, and he's going to be able to do things that other guys aren't. Let me compare and contrast two fighters. One of the better fighters I've seen is Felix the Cat, Guillermo Jones. right? Who's still fighting, by the way, right? Guillermo Jones has held titles. The difference between Guillermo Jones and Vladimir Klitschko is that Guillermo Jones looks like he loves a buffet table, right? I know a lot about that myself, right? He loves a buffet table. He's a guy who looks like he enjoys life. You know this personality type. You look at him, he's in fight shape. You see him on fight night, he looks great. You see him, 2 months after the fight, the guy has gained 15 pounds, 20 pounds, right? And the body's a little bit soft. Think Brandon Rios, right? In my opinion, those guys just don't have the reflexes, just don't have the stamina of someone like Vladimir Klitschko, who I don't believe I've ever seen out of shape. Right? They could interview Vladimir Klitschko. You look at him, right, between fights, you don't even know if he has a fight scheduled. The guy is always in shape. I believe Bryant Jennings is always in shape. He's a great athlete. I'm telling you, the great athletes have a huge advantage. Another one at heavyweights, Alexander Povetkin. Right? You could just sense guys who are great athletes. Right? Bryant Jennings is going to be much faster than Luis Ortiz. He doesn't have to understand the sport like Ortiz does. He doesn't have to know how to play chess like Ortiz does. And Ortiz is a master chess player. Right? One of the best at heavyweight. In my opinion, all Jennings has to do is use movement, shoot a jab, move around the ring, keep Ortiz engaged, but unable to set up shop. If he's able to use movement, speed, turn Ortiz a few times, I think Ortiz is going to fall apart in the middle of the fight. Folks, this is for the interim WBA heavyweight title. I'm going to read some numbers to you. Right? 3, 1, 1, 4, 1, 3. Those are the number of rounds that Ortiz's last 6 fights have gone. Right? Ortiz hasn't been required to fight past the 4th round in his last few fights. Let me tell you too, you should be concerned when a heavyweight, a guy who doesn't have to make weight, fails a drug test. Right? That's when you're saying, whoa, what's the drug for? Right? It wasn't a diuretic to cut water to make weight. You're a heavyweight. You could show up 230, 240, 250. Right? What's the drug for? I'm just telling you, guys who need to augment their preparation with drugs that lead to failed drug tests. And Ortiz failed a drug test after the Latif Coyote bout. Right? That was declared a no contest. Right? You need to put up the red flag on fighters like that. You need to ask yourself, wow, if this guy's a world-class athlete ready to go 12 rounds, if he was dedicated in training camp and he has developed his stamina by sparring and road work and proper diet and nutrition, then what does he have to take drugs for to augment his level of fitness? Right? Now, I've seen Ortiz look like Guillermo Jones. Look like a guy who was out of shape, relying on his skills to get through a fight. Now, I'll concede Ortiz lately looks like he's in great shape. Right? But again, I personally believe that things catch up with you over time. Right? You're out of shape. You're in your 30s. Ortiz is mid-30s. Right? Your fitness is yo-yoing. I'm just telling you, at some point in a fight, the part of the fight you're unfamiliar with, right? Your body hasn't been in the 5th round, the 6th round lately, the 7th round. At some time in a fight, your body that was just out of shape, that you've just gotten in shape recently, is going to say, hey man, we can't go here. You know, hey, I'm tired, man. Right? At some point, your body is going to say, dude, you're not expecting me to go 12 rounds here. Right? This young lion across from me is too fast. He's using too much lateral movement. He's shooting too many jabs. Right? This part of the trip I can't make. I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. Right? Ortiz has a punch. He has a huge KO percentage. Right? I'll agree there are times where Bryant Jennings, is showing a little bit too much courage, which could be bad in boxing. Right? You don't want to linger around the pocket too long against a guy who has a KO ratio over 70%. I'll agree Ortiz, whose last few fights have ended by KO or TKO, if he catches you, he can drop you. But there's no reason Jennings should linger around the pocket, especially with his reach, long enough to risk being caught. Bryant Jennings can make this one of his finest moments. Right? Ortiz reminds me a lot of Sonny Liston. Right? If you could get the real King Kong off the Empire State Building by hanging in the fight to the later rounds, Ortiz might just quit on his stool. Right? Because I just don't think physically this knockout puncher is prepared to go 12 rounds. The bet I'm recommending, if you had one bet to make, if I had a gun to my head, I would say I'm taking Bryant Jennings in this fight. If the odds allow, I'll hedge the play with Ortiz by KO. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments for me here in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.